because of my family, I'm good to be here, and I feel honored and humbled at the same time, more humbled than honored, that I'm really fulfilling what I have no choice. I don't have a choice in this. I have to be here. And to meet such wonderful people, the last time I was here, Dr. Lamote was the president. He and I shared a very wonderful time. But at that time, I was very involved as an executive in the recording industry. And I was traveling, and since then I've been in Europe more than here, off and on. But it just so happens now that with how my life has evolved, I'm about to become an empty nester. About to become an empty nester. I have three children, all of which are now grown and married and out of the house. And unfortunately, just as I returned back from Europe, about 8 months later, 3 years ago, my husband passed. He was Teddy Washington, one of the Flames actually, with James Brown, and quite a notable musician. But in all honesty, the pedigree that I was made of was not altogether in common with my husband's lifestyle. But I was married, and so my life kind of took form according to his industry and his lifestyle and so forth. But yet, I still was a Peyton, so I had to kind of keep the two in mind. Well, until Aunt Dolly passed, I was getting a pass. But when she passed, I no longer have a pass. Now
When did she pass?
She passed in '97. And I left the record industry, actually, and moved back to Atlanta. I believe it was 2008. And my husband passed in 2011. Mm-hmm. So, as it turns out now, I don't want to do anything unless it's purposeful. I came up in a Christian upbringing. So I can take all of my life experience and all of my resources. And the first thing I've got to do, of course, is give honor to God with it. But then the next thing is Fort Valley State University, because this has been a part of the Peyton family, more so than the relatives. Even when the contributions were made, the school was considered over the family, over us, because we were always told that, as long as we had breath, we should be resourceful and help and develop and do things. We weren't, just handicapped. So we were all to contribute to the school. And that's why, not just with the last endowment that my Aunt Ruth gave, but all through the years, the school has been a part of this family. One of the things that struck me when I became more involved with the school was when you read about the history of the school, you see that its beginnings was with 3 white men and 13, or 14 Negroes. Well, I came to set the record straight to that. I want to put names to those numbers. I came to put names to those numbers. It's bringing that history out. It's talking about the suicide that was done because of the hatred and the racial divide when that land grant was made by Tom McAfee. There were the 3 white people were Ezra and his brother and Mr. Tom. And one of them, there was so much hatred going on, one of them pretended to be crazy and jumped into a river and committed suicide. After that, it was so much chaos. The McAfees fled to Chicago. Some of them are there today. These things are not mentioned. But I have an aunt that I talked to. She's 92 now, and just last night when I told her I was coming here to meet you, she was just so, baby, I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for not letting us down. And like I said, there are things that I want to do now. I think I'm able to be resourceful. My life history and the things that I've done, I think we can do some things to bring Fort Valley, at least its notoriety back on the map, and use me to any extent you need to do that. But Lena Horne's uncle was the dean here in its early stages. And I manage a young lady in Baltimore that does a tremendous performance. She is tribute to three of the very notable female vocalists, Dinah Washington, Billie Holiday, Nancy Wilson, and Lena Horne. And I spoke to her when I told her I was coming here. And I said, I might want to bring you to Fort Valley and let's just do something. You have to use what you have, but then you make something of that to my life career raising my children were taking unknown people and making them bigger than life so that people would take their rent money to buy concert tickets. So again, we can do that. We can make a star out of Fort Valley and let's use whatever resources we have. Now, I don't want to preach.
Let me make, in the context of the history, the book you're writing, take a look at a book called The Light in the Valley.
Okay.
Written by one of our distinguished faculty who has since retired, having some health challenges, Dr. Bellamy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he talks about some of what you talked about in that book.
Oh, are you sure?
Yep.
Do you see why it's important if we're going to rebrand? Now, let me just tell you this. May I please?
Surely, please do.
This envelope, you might read the cover, what my aunt wrote on there.
Very important family information by my father.
Written over 100 years ago, I think, is on there.
Wow. Some 100 years old.
Yeah. Dolly. Now, it's very gentle because it's 100 years old, but this is the very envelope that she handed this over to me and said, okay, now you take the baton. And because of what we have made of you, you see how old that is? These are my grandfather's handwritten journals. You might want to read that article.
February 1903. These are not just old bits of paper.
Right.
They are vignettes of history.
And when you read my grandfather's sermon, sometimes I'm sitting in his church. I never even knew my grandfather. I wasn't born then. I knew him through newspaper articles, through his journals, and through the things that he mentioned, that my aunt and my father spoke to me about. Here you'll find. This is my Aunt Daisy, who worked for President Roosevelt, and she handwrote that. That's an article of her as well. Yeah, these are things that I think we don't know about. They don't have names, but they exist. And one of the things that I asked to see, and I don't know if it's still here, and if it is maybe stored away in some archive, but my grandmother graduated from the Fort Valley High Industrial School. And at that time, they tell me that they used sheepskin for the diplomas. I don't know that. I've never seen a sheepskin diploma, and I wanted to see it here. I know it's here somewhere. But these are things, this is a postcard. Can you imagine a postcard and a black woman? Well, back then, a postcard. And she was one, there are newspaper articles, it might be in that one, in the Los Angeles paper. Yeah. Which says that woman could call the president anytime she so choose. The history says that the Obama two daughters are the two black kids that's the first that stayed in the White House. It actually was her two daughters. No one knows that. This is my grandfather, who was the visionary for Fort Valley State, and that's Tom McAfee on the front. This is his daughter. This is his,
Louise.
And now to this day, we have McAfee Properties in California. Has been around. She was the one that actually, I don't know how that, her name is Ezreen. Her name is Ezreen because her father's name was Ezra McAfee. Can you imagine? Alberta Payton, that's me. I'm the 16-year-old. This is Dolly. And this is my father. And Ruth is, this is Ruth. Behind me, that's Dolly. This is who gave you the most of the money. This is my father, and that's his brother. This is an adopted child. This
is taken where?
Here in Fort Valley on, what is it, Macon Street or Fort Valley, something, Walden Street.
October 1962.
Well, I was the only biological kid in the Peyton family. There you go. This was my grandmother, Alberta Peyton. Isn't that something? Aren't they precious? And I didn't bring everything. I just brought a few things that I felt. And this is Dolly. She was a socialite. She kind of made me a socialite, and she was like, you know, she taught me how to cruise and how to go all over the world and all of that. This is just an email to me from the little White House letting me know about the different things that they were giving me to do what I do. This is the speech that we gave when I was, this is the last time we gave money to the school, the $430,000. It was from this speech that Aunt Dolly gave. And every time I look at it, I remember sitting in the audience, and you know, she just, and it tells about how Daisy was married to Ezra McAfee. Oh, here's the letter. Dr. Griffith, that's my grandmother again. But this is the letter that the previous president wrote in regards to that.
Did you hear the class motto? With the ropes of the past, we will ring the bells of the future.
Oh, they were so. If you could read her valedictorian speech, it's so fitting even today. And it was about women back then. Can you imagine that?
I love that.
Elizabeth is Dolly, by the way.
Incredible.
Isn't it incredible?
They had their class flowers.
Yeah, they had their class. Now that's a copy of grandmother's diploma. Is this how the diploma looked? I think this was the sheepskin. And that's what you guys have, and I would love to see it if we could find it at some point.
There's a copy of sheepskin high school diploma.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever seen a sheepskin diploma? I have never.
I've seen sheepskin diploma, but in other countries.
I have never seen it. I would just love to see how they, you know, and this was her speech.
This is 1903.
Incredible. And this was her speech, her valedictorian speech.
Look at the penmanship.
Yeah.
That's the one that I definitely noticed.
The old English Pemberton, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you should see my grandfather's sermons. They're all written that way. I wanted you to see
Well, I certainly appreciate
why I'm here. I wanted to share with you what I see and what drives me to come here and say, please give me some time. I have to do this whether I want to or not. Because it's more than just doing something to be doing. It's out of necessity, but it's also out of obligation, out of passion and need. And therefore, you get the best of everything.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, it started out as a boarding school. It started out. I can remember hearing conversations at home around the dinner table about, you talk about those days, I can hear my grandfather, not my grandfather, but my grandmother and them talking about how it used to be when it was Fort Valley State Industrial. In New Beginnings, I just would love to have her, you know, to come and bring, like you said, Dr. Griffith, the future, you know, to the college. We have a lot of us old folks, you know, who have done it, but now let's bring some history to the future of it.